we're at right now. We do the Richard Feynman Prize as well. You've probably heard of that.
And so we started a couple of minutes ago. Now I will be switching to our real stream. Let's go.
Researchers now that are living next door. Only about 5 to 10 of them actually come in every day, but we're working to change that.
I will be.
And I guess to me, researchers now that are you want to share a bit about ethos. And I'm going to have to run off now, unfortunately, because I'm actually late for meetings. Yeah. And have a great night, guys.
I'm visible if you stay there. Yeah. Okay.
Fine.
Because it's also streamed.
Oh, I see. Okay, great. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dimitri. I think I probably said hi to many of you downstairs. I often work door during these events. I'm one of the managers here at this space. And ethos is, well, there's a bunch of people working here, but it's loosely, this space here, we're kind of working on rebranding to be more inclusive. The AI space at CIC, something like that. We're still searching on the right term. Basically, this is a co-working space for people who are working on positive AI projects. And we have a bunch of AI safety researchers here. We have AI Berlin. They're sponsored by the city of Berlin. They support AI projects coming to Berlin and Berlin-based AI projects working in other places. We have a number of startups here. And the long and short of it is, if you're looking for a co-working space, we can get you a good deal to work here. So if you're interested, you're looking for a co-working space, go on ethos.org and then under Become a Partner. And on there, oh yeah, I guess I should say a little bit. Ethos started in Boston. It's connected to CIC. And the CIC in Boston is right across from MIT. And Sam, who founded Ethos, is in Boston. So there's a couple of us helping out here. Satya is traveling. He'll be back soon. But anyway, the long and short of it is, if you're looking for a co-working space, go on the website, previous page, go under Become a Partner, and you can apply there and we can get you a good deal. We're a nonprofit based here at CIC, and we can get you a good deal on co-working space. So we'd love to hear from you. With that, that's fine.
Thank you, Dimo. Appreciate that. And if you also want a good deal, you come to me. You know what I'm saying? I'll make things happen. I'm just trying to say, yeah. All right. I think I'm not wasting your time. I think the next one is going to be very interesting. It's also a very smart person that I met in my life. And he's also my co-founder. It's Vitaly JS. He's the CEO of AxWise. Please come up.
Okay, it was so yeah, nice of you. But yeah, I mean, happy to be here, and yeah, it's Jaden Jiaping. Yeah, sorry. Okay, no, I'm okay. Later. Okay, we'll do a mic drop. So yeah, my name is Vitalis. I came from product management, SV experience, and so on and so on. And one question I want to ask you, it's not about raise your hand, but probably you've seen using LLMs or something like smart advices. Act as a, I don't know, software developer with 15 years of experience. Do you know what do you achieve with that when you're writing this to the LLM? Your ideas?
Yes.
Please.
You're telling it to you're telling the LLM to prioritize certain connections so that it can focus its responses.
Yeah, very good one. Anyone else? Yeah, please.
So you provide more relevant words to retrieve the answer you want from associative memory.
Yeah, exactly. About the context engineering, latent space, where it's close to each other and so on. What if I tell you, let's say, I'm a CEO of a company. What does it tell you? Not a lot, his CEO, where is the company is? Like, is it in Berlin, or it's in Germany? Maybe it's in USA, maybe it's in Cabo Verde, how it was, yeah? It's like hard, yeah? But how big is the company? Even if it's in Germany, and it's in Wolfsburg, where I worked, but I wasn't a CEO, yeah, that's why I'm staying here. It will tell you like, okay, maybe he's working on automotive, yeah? If he's from Wolfsburg, he's CEO, but probably, I don't know that he's a CEO of Volkswagen, maybe an outsourcing company, right? Outsourcing company, how big it is? 50 people, 10 people, or it's a startup. Maybe it's a supply chain. Maybe it's already integrated family business. A lot of context is hidden when you're saying act as. And the hardest part of it is actually nailing down who is that exact person is. Maybe some of you try to open like your startup or doing some idea, and every time you're coming to the venture builder or somebody, they're telling, what is your niche? What is your auditory? What is your like, who you are serving your product, yeah? And you're like, yeah, we are in healthcare and we want to serve like, I don't know, a lot of people in North Germany. Maybe it's Pflegeheim, maybe it's something else, yeah, something like facilities. But they want you to be very, very precise. And it's very hard to extract this information by the normal human being. And when you're writing this prompt, it's exactly the same issue all the product managers facing every day, day-to-day job. That's why they are called product managers, because they need to really understand their different customers. And that's how we built the AxWise, literally. So like it's pretty generic thing, you like analyze real users, generate synthetic data sets, automate discovery. Yes, it was one of the ideas, and it was like one of, let's say, use cases, yeah. Here is like just a small presentation about the, let's say, chat, which helps you to identify the stakeholders, yeah. So you're like asking about some particular thing, but what is happening in behind, it's like business idea defined, target customer identified, problem understood, industry, location, and so on. So it's narrowing down the options you have for your particular thing. And then it's identifying your primary stakeholders. But does it give you information if you're just writing it in plain words? No, you need to speak with them, right? And how to speak with them? Like, you will need to find this guy, for example, for this particular problem. You will need to ask him this question, then find this guy, then find this guy, then find another secondary stakeholder. So you need to not only to identify the stakeholders, which is the first problem, but also approach them, speak with them. And it's usually in a limited amount of time. And you're like, oh, okay, I will go to work in a decade like for my whole life, and it's fine. And you're not building a startup or whatever, yeah? And it's called discovery and ideation, and Boston consulting groups and so on, taking like 300K for just such kind of a business. Then you need to speak with them. And after you speak with them, you need somehow to actually know how you will ask the questions that will be not like leading. And it's like an entire profession called UX researcher, product designer, whatever, yeah? And they're like doing this design thinking stuff. And that's our service, like kind of open source service discovering as well. So you have, for example, interview simulation when you have like questions and so on and so on. And the prettiest part is that you can look on it and read these interviews and evaluate by yourself. So every step, like identifying stakeholders, having a questionnaire for them, and doing all the simulations, giving you a lot of inside data before you actually started to develop something, yeah? That's also a whole idea. But there is more than that. Let me just, yeah, it's a little bit slowy. Probably a lot of generated interviews are loading now, but yeah, didn't optimize it. Just show it. For example, there was a simulation for compliance manager at London-based something. So London-based challenger bar. So this information is what I was talking at the beginning. Age range, location, industry experience, education, income level, company size, and so on, yeah? If you want to generate it like recurrently, and that it will be almost deterministic, means there is some variety, but deterministic that if you will run it 10 times, it won't be completely random. It will be within some confidence interval. Yeah, you need to have some reliable service. Do you have any idea where you will go for this like engine? Maybe there are some proprietary options like synthetic users, but usually they are like on a level of Palantir or something. Yeah, if you want to have this. Yeah, we spent like 9 months just building it, but yeah, then you have like questions and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, you can use this information for a lot of different use cases. You can analyze it as a standard interviews. Yeah, so for example, you're going to for the like last analysis history, you're looking to the result, and you analyze them as a design thinking. You identify themes, patterns, identify the personas out of it, getting the insights, getting the prioritized insights, even getting PRD, but it's like already a product that it's coming like as an add-on, yeah? And then you have, for example, software product requirement document for software development, yeah? But if we're talking about the completely different prospects, imagine you have different scope and you want to understand what is the predictive maintenance software for manufacturing plants, like what is a like product description, yeah, in a DACH region, can you generate who might be interested in it, yeah? How would you do this? So you need to nail down the problem you want to solve and who is the target persona, and that's pretty much it. You pull the data from the register, for example, yeah, and then you have a lot of different companies, and you have literally profile of people which will like generated by AxWise engine, yeah, and then produced as a digital twin, so you can speak with them. So first of all, you have an interview transcript, and then you have, hey, like, how your day typically is going. I'm sorry. Is going. And then, with all this context, with a bunch of things that you will usually not put in cloud or ChatGPT because it's like very hard, because you need to keep a lot of information pretty much defined, yeah? It's answering here, hey, typical day for me is incredibly fast-paced, dynamic, yada, yada, yeah? And there is like a reasoning, yeah? Embracing energetic startup founder mindset to convey a fast-paced but highly focused daily routine, recalling their ongoing, and then you're prepared for a call, for example, for outreach, or you want to understand their profile better. How would you do this usually, yeah? You need to keep all these frameworks in your mind to build this persona, build a digital twin, and so on, and it's hard, yeah? So these things actually enables a lot of stuff. That's why it's like open source, and we are like giving it for free. Don't forget to put a star here, AxWise, GmbH, AxWise Flow. And for example, currently what we are investigating next is agentic orchestration and workflows. So currently the main issue with agents are that they are pretty functional, but they do not apply the first thing I was talking about. They cannot like copy you and your unique perspective within your field of area. And this is very important because like CEO of a startup in Wolfsburg and a CEO of Volkswagen, so absolutely different things, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We are part of AI Nation, Japan, Jaden, yeah, as he said, working also here, like helping with a lot of stuff. And yeah, I mean, happy to answer any questions going ahead. Thank you.
All right, is there any question?
I can see that you can read the profiles from every person there. So you are preparing socially hacking a person to go get an interview with them or and prepare you for the interview.
As I said, it's mainly like creating a kind of digital twin, and it's a very reliable way. So everything that you can simulate, for example, simulating the interview, it will be like additional function, but you've seen its additional function is already here. So yeah, you can like prepare for the interview. For example, if you, I guess for the job interview, for example, yeah, it's possible. Yeah. It's one of the use cases. You can literally go, just copy it. Yeah, you have all the engine to generate the job interview and connect additional sources. I connected, I think, Kununu and Glassdoor and some public reviews. Yeah, just for this one. Yeah, to get some more not so orthodox kind of mentioning of a company, because it gives a little bit more spice to the persona.
Yeah, I think the demonstration of technology was very cool. I actually had a similar question of trying to understand the scope of things that are offered on your platform. So like interview preparation and what is the offering? Is it mostly for interview preparation, or is it some other content? Thank you.
Yeah, so basically it is copying kind of or preparing your reliable synthetic persona. What you will do later with this, it's like up to you. For example, there was one of the use cases. I worked a bit briefly in one tech company, one of the biggest. And what they did, they copied literally their way of targeting people in a good way, don't worry. But for example, you're riding a gravel bike, you're like purchasing something in a deck and so on, and you want to kind of target these people this particular product. Yeah, how would you do this? Yeah, you need to understand them better. You want to introduce them as account manager, whatever. Yeah, and you need to prepare a clusters of it. Yeah, and then literally you can use this synthetic persona just for not nudging the people, but understanding their kind of intents, what the products are better for them, and so on. Yeah. So maybe for targeting, for the interviews, whatever, like, or identifying leads. So yeah, about that.
Cool. Thanks so much for the presentation. You just mentioned connecting external sources, and this is where I see most of the potential. Because if I can either upload my own documents, I can upload files that I have about that company, other sources like Kununu and these kind of things. What do you integrate with currently? And also, how can I pick the model that is generating the synthetic data? Like, do you integrate with Light LLM or something so it's easy to just connect my own, like bring my own model to the table?
We had, I will start from the last one. We had a really heated discussion with Jaden regarding this one, regarding the different models. The reason is, first of all, it's open source. So if you want like to have a little bit more, let's say not multimodal, but multimodal, yeah. So different LLMs and so on. It's based on OpenAI schema. So it's kind of pretty much like free, yeah. But the issue is that you need to optimize, for sure, you need to optimize the output, yeah. And another thing is open source. As many enterprises coming and like, or going to the conferences, they're saying, oh, you need to be compliant, you need to be this and this and this. Yeah, that's all cool. But first of all, like our time is not free. Yeah? And if you want to like extend it, we can build it as an extension. But the plans for Light LLM or virtual LLM, yeah, for sure, it's planned. It's one of the next things. And regarding the source systems, it's also kind of extension and what is the prioritize. For example, for this particular demo with this sales leads, I made it just for this event, yeah, just because, I mean, front end costs nothing. Front end costs zero if you know how to understand it, how to build it, yeah. But the backend and the way you're doing the stuff and operating with the data is like a mode. I would say all the magic backend happens on the backend. So that's kind of thing. Yeah.
That would be my question. What exactly happens on the backend? How is it different from just asking the ChatGPT to research about the company and do the web search, get all the public information, and prepare for the interview? What else? What extra step are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And so the thing is that you need to like, first of all, absolutely, you can make it yourself. Will you have the same results? I doubt, because like there is like a big ambiguity on like making thing once and making things like 5,000 times. That's how I did it with the interviews. Yeah. And if you want to integrate in a company or something, it's not about somebody's like writing different prompts and trying to, play with the system. It's something more deterministic where you can say, okay, it's like in some competence kind of a thing, producing considerably same results. What do I mean? If like 5 startups come to you and saying, okay, I got the same discovery insights regarding our companies, and you didn't ask them, you didn't fine tune it. And they're saying, it's like 95% matching what we discovered from our interviews. And you're like, oh, wow, amazing. So that's the kind of evaluation you want to have first. It's very qualitative evaluation at the beginning. And later, it's more like you're evaluating against, for example, your interview files or your personas and so on. What did it identify? One of the primary use cases was Volkswagen account manager's problem I solved personally, and it wasn't in public. I know it wasn't in public, and it was absolutely the same stakeholders and questions.
All right, last question.
How would you differentiate your platform with TinyTrue? Firstly, have you tried TinyTrue?
Which one?
TinyTrue?
TinyTrue. I don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe there is.
Microsoft like 2 years ago, source application and ask questions.
Okay.
On the platform.
Okay.
I think because I want to learn about the persona that your platform is building, and if you know that, maybe we. So that you're.
I think the main aspect, what I've seen in the different platforms, a lot of them are like pretty kind of highlighting first layer. Let's say just a common description, which is not grounded to anything. The thing is that maybe you've seen here this interview part, yeah? I would say the interview part is kind of like, I'm sorry for this weird comparison, yeah, embrace and cringe. It's like a back propagation to your kind of a persona profile. If you created a description, then you created some kind of interview, and then you analyzed it again. You have more fulfilled persona because it was like a kind of reasoning for the persona itself. I hope you kind of get the idea.
All right, give it an applause to Vitaly.
Thank you. And I guess next one.
Yeah, so next one is gonna be Desktop Commander, and
I need
very
to
happy to announce him.
Stop sharing, yeah?
Yes, he has 110K monthly active users, racked up like 6.1K GitHub stars, pretty big. And yeah, Edward, are you ready?
Yep, give me a sec. We'll share the screen. So you guys should be able to see me with my presentation,
Yes.
do you? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, Berlin.
Pardon, it's on OBS currently, so we see it through OBS.
Oh, sorry, wrong screen then.
Should.
Give me a sec. I shared the wrong one then. Should be now here. Sorry about that.
Perfect. Lovely.
Okay, so hello Berlin. My name is Edwards and I am CEO of Desktop Commander. And when asking about who will be the audience of this event, I heard that we will have some students and some entrepreneurs. So I thought that I would go through our story through a couple of things. I will share what the usual hacks work for startups, not all of them, there are a bunch, but what we ended up using on our side to get to where we are, how it played out for Desktop Commander, and I also will show you what Desktop Commander is in a couple of demos. So first, let's a little bit speak about what Desktop Commander is. We started a year ago, before Cloud Code, where we created something that allowed AIs to use your computer as a tool. And we started as MCP, the Model Context Protocol. That is a way to give tools to AIs. In reality, we started even a little bit before that. And today we have our own Desktop Commander application that runs on your machine and helps you to have agents that do use your computer as a tool. But that came a little bit later.
Uh,
Yes.
I think it's got a little bit stuck. I mean, like, yeah.
I will try to share from the internet. And maybe turn off the camera. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there is some internet issues, right?
My face.
Is it better now? Okay, let's try to continue. Okay, so in our case, first hack I want to speak about is building in public. As it's said here, that it's not exactly for marketing. I would say that it's not only for marketing. Usually when entrepreneurs think about building in public, they think it's only a way to get to the audience. But there are a couple of other things that I learned from building in public that are slightly different. There is more to it than just that. For example, building in public in certain ways helps you actually to prolong your runway a little bit, in the sense that you can do it in platforms that allows you to earn a little bit of money, and I will get to that in next slides. Then it does allow you to build an audience beforehand, in the sense that you start experimenting in the area, you start to make content, people notice, you start to build some authority and authenticity about what you're building. And when you do hit at something...
We have technical issues because of the internet. It's pretty lag. I mean, I don't know why it's lagging.
With my own internet, maybe it will work better.
Okay.
I think it's on the Berlin side.
Well, let's give them a little bit of time to figure that out.
Give me a sec. No, it's freeze. It's frozen here. Guys, any technical? Should we like? No, now it's better. Yes.
Don't use the CIC Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the CIC. All right. I think now we can continue. Sorry.
Okay, is this better now? Okay, we'll try to continue. So, okay, you build the audience, and then when you hit some kind of an idea, you already have people to start and test it against. And another thing that I learned and why I like to build in public is that it kind of forces you to be more accountable. Sometimes we, developers, entrepreneurs, build something for a while in the basement, and this is a very wrong thing to do, in a sense that biggest mistake we can do is to spend a lot of time building a perfect thing that no one needs. When you're building in public, you're forced to speak about it publicly, and if you find it hard time to speak about what you're building publicly, probably you're building a wrong thing. So how this worked out for me? I was doing a more classical B2B through Incubator around 2022, where we did usual thing. We identified the scope of problems, we went and identified the persona, we interviewed a bunch of them. We were working back then on the idea in terms of doing quantitative analysis of qualitative data, user reviews, comments, other unstructured feedback from users. Then ChatGPT happened, we decided to stop, and I decided to try something new. I started writing on Medium while exploring about AI, exploring tools, exploring problems, exploring potential of AI for entrepreneurship and startups. And I also started in 2023 doing content on YouTube about that. How did it go? Well, in terms of Medium, over the last couple of years, I reached to around 160,000 people. You can also see around here that YouTube also paid me $6,000 for what I was writing about AI for these years. What about YouTube? For a couple of years of doing it regularly, 91 videos, I reached to 300,000, 62,000 people and gained almost 10,000 subscribers. And YouTube pays a little bit less for this, it's $1,000. By the way, as a side comment, I was doing that for 1 day a week for a couple of years, while working for 4 days while on official job. So now let's go to the story of Desktop Commander in 10 cents. Already since 2023, I had a prototype, a ChatGPT server commander, and which allowed to connect to any machine, and controlled it through terminal from ChatGPT, even from mobile phone. Kind of very popular this year, but back then I already had first versions. But I didn't have proofs that it's needed. It was also too technical. And well, there was some feedback. People wanted it. I got maybe 45 stars on it since then. Time was going. And in November 24, Anthropic released MCPs. It was a way better way to distribute tools for AIs. It mostly because it standardized it. It was easier to get into multiple places with same solution. It was kind of like a Chrome extension, but for agents. So what I did then was that I converted my experiment that I had for ChatGPT to MCP, published it on GitHub, and also published it on NPM. I burned out a little bit, didn't do much for a couple of months, and then wrote a blog post on Medium about it. It was end of February. I also started working on YouTube video, spent a couple of weeks preparing to record it. So while all that was happening, here is stats for that article in February. This was mostly my usual amount of readers at the start, couple of dozens. But then time was going, MCP's adoption didn't yet start, but came middle of March. At this point, you can see that I started to get a couple of thousands reads on Medium a day. This is also was approximately the time that I finished recording the video and published it. Basically, from what we know with the team, what happened at the time was that a couple of other tools like Cursor and Windsurf adopted MCPs, and a big conference about MCPs happens in San Francisco, and March of 25 is when MCP adoption actually started, even though the standard was released almost 4 months before that. Basically, we started to grow. Here is first day of YouTube being published, already 10,000 views and 400 subscribers. Which is a little bit unusual. I think my most popular video before that was around 30,000 views around vibe coding stuff. So that was kind of, we kind of hit a wave. And this is sometimes a usual thing in how some capture virality, in a sense that usually some of this kind of things start from a community. One other example is, for example, Notch, creator of Minecraft. He was making games for a while out of Ludum Dare community, and with one of them, he caught the wave. Usually, waves start, and those who are in this kind of community can try to catch it and ride it. It's kind of like we were early in this space a little bit, and we caught this wave. So over time, this is how the video looks like. The first one about the topic today, 137,000 views. 56,000 reads on Medium. This is how you can kind of leverage and catch waves sometimes when you're building in public. Now let's go and check the first demo, because I haven't spoken about what was in the video and what actually caught attention. Which was, I demoed 3 use cases back then of how you can use Claude with the Desktop Commander MCP. And one of the use cases was creating documentation and diagrams for code bases. Today, that may not sound very impressive, but remember, this was slightly pre-Claude Code. Let's actually do a quick demo. Here, I'm not in the right tab. So here is Claude in the chat mode. Let me show you where we are today with where the extensions today are. So there are plugins and extensions for Claude. They work for both Today Cowork, Claude Code, and in chat. And today, Desktop Commander is 8 in their local connectors. So you can come here, you can install it, you can check all things it can do. So the demo I wanted to show was that here I have, for example, a project that is exactly about the Desktop Commander MCP. And what I can do here is to show what I was showing back then, in a sense that take a look at the code repository, explore it, create for me diagrams explaining where is what, how it works, and word in the repo. So what we built back then was an MCP that has access to running and interacting with processes on computer, and also reading the and interacting with file system. And we built it around like January last year. So it works approximately this way. I think I will not spend more time at the moment. I can show you the previous run of the similar chat, where it was producing a year ago this kind of reports, where you could see all kind of things. And on board a new open source projects, you're like starting a new job as a software engineer, and you're getting this kind of onboardings for repos. There are more use cases, but this was one that clicked back then. So we initially had kind of like a developer side of things, but we also had wipe coders and other types of users. So now I want to go and tell you about the second hack. So the way I describe this is that you usually should not build your own street when you are trying to do, for example, a bakery shop. Instead, you need to decide for your startup which street you want to start on. For example, a lot of startups successfully start from Chrome extensions, as Shopify plugins, or as in our case, MCPs. You go and use someone else's street. You decide what type of problem you're solving, for whom, where is the street where those people already are, and you put your shop there. And later, Chrome extensions, Shopify plugins, and MCPs turn into full startups. In our case, and maybe one more thing to speak about here, if you don't know what Startup Canvas is, check it out. Some people who only start in startups think that startup is just one great idea. In reality, it's 30 ideas and maybe even 100. Startup Canvas speaks that you need a problem, you need solutions, you have cost structure, you have unfair advantage, and you are targeting a certain customer segment, and there are channels to access it. And from what I know about startup founders, when they fail, they end up focusing on one part. In my case, and for my co-founders, channel is pretty important part. In a sense, what is the best way to get to exactly the users you want the fastest? And this is where understanding where the streets are and where you can put your shop the easiest to reach those users is that part. So in our case, we were MCP. There were platforms popping up that were listing MCPs, and we registered with the first one that was called Smithery. And back then we were pretty popular on it. We had something like 1 million events a month, while others had 100 and 1,000 events, and we were like sitting at the top of it. What happened afterwards that was interesting was that while we added ourselves to the first few platforms, GitHub, NPM, and this one, to the next platforms, other people were adding us, in a sense that there were new platforms popping up at the time. They were seeing us as a popular MCP. They were adding us and asking us, hey, come and claim your submission. We added us to our repository. What was interesting in that regard was that even Docker did it, in a sense that we have today pretty popular on the 5th place MCP submission on Docker MCP Hub with 100,000 of downloads there, and it's not us who added there. It's Docker people did it when they build the hub, and they were supporting it, and we were helping them to support this. But it's also was happening in other places. For example, here is GitHub MCP Hub, where we are also on the first page. So in that sense, understanding these distribution channels and where in them you can find your spot does help a lot. So that resulted in us getting to something like 20,000 monthly active users by May, in a couple of months. That meant also that already VCs are knocking on our door, seeing us in a couple of other places. And from there, at the time we were trying to decide whether we want to bootstrap or rise. And we decided that market is pretty like a bloodbath, a lot of competition, and that we probably will not be able to bootstrap in this space. So we decided to raise and started working throughout the summer, speaking with investors, managed to raise our pre-seed investment of 1 million last October. And we promised that we will grow our MCP and we'll build an app and convert users to paying users on the app. And we'll focus on use cases around what we're learning from all of this. And we did that. We released the app last January, which focused on multimodality, on working on your machine locally, and helping less technical people to automate work on their machines. By accident, Cowork launched on the same week as we did. It was completely unplanned from our side, obviously. And in the first week, we were a little bit worried in the sense that it, on the surface, claimed that it does approximately similar things. What was interesting was that on the MCP side, we actually tripled our user base from Anthropic products. We were then exploring why, and what we learned was that there are differences in what Desktop Commander does and Cowork does. And a lot of our user base already commenting that, hey, we were doing for a year what Cowork can do with Desktop Commander, plus you can actually install it in Cowork and do a little bit more than, not a little bit, like do more with Cowork. So today, half of our users in MCP side are actually inside of Cowork on the Anthropic side. And this is kind of interesting again in terms of how to play today with open source and plugins in the ecosystem. In a sense, it usually doesn't actually make sense to fight. You need to find the ways to coexist symbiotically in the ecosystem and grow with the ecosystem. This is what happens for us on the MCP side. So, and in terms of the application and why we focused on local, on files, one thing that I'm describing myself since 23 as a big problem with AI is context. Problem is that to work efficiently, AI actually need the right context. And it cannot, and most of the context is actually in our heads. And AI cannot read from our head. What's more, when it did work, it cannot write to our head. So two biggest problems when you're building AI products is where can you the fastest get the most context so that agent is kind of like in context of user needs, and the UX of how best can agent communicate to human in terms of what happened, which is challenging type of problem. So yeah, AI cannot read your mind, it cannot upload into your mind, but for us, the hack that we found is that user download folder is that place, in a sense that basically it's integration hub between a lot of SaaS. SaaS is usually fragmented, sandboxed, people download files into download folder, do something with them, upload to another SaaS. So this is what was happening with Desktop Commander users. They were starting with their download folder. From there, the agent knows more about who they are, how it can help them. It helps them organize the files and folders, and then it can help them to do more with their computer, because from this point, it starts to help them connect what is not connected. Where the file is coming from, it can get that. It can do and automate what needs to happen with files and can send the files to the next destination. This is pretty usual story of how it happens with users. So let's take a look at that. Let me open the Desktop Commander. So that's the Desktop Commander app today. We support a bunch of models. We can also support subscriptions. For example, I'm using ChatGPT subscription here, but we support local models and open source models and a bunch of other providers. And then I can ask something like, check the folder. Who am I? Can you learn what I do? How can you help me paste that? So basically, now I'm using the files on my computer as a way to onboard the agent to who am I and how it can help me. So it already learned from the files who I am, that I'm founder and operator of Desktop Commander. It sees that I have files that are related to product, fundraising, growth, user research, and other things. So it now already is knowing somewhat who am I and it can then think of what it can do to help me with various work. Now, what happens next is, and let me show you a little bit different chat. So afterwards, it can help build various workflows that connect what you already have on your computer. Maybe one more thing to share here is what I also know that cloud agents failed a little bit over the last years, and this is why multiple companies went to local. Failed in what way? Usually agent starts with that zero connection, zero state. It's not onboarded, there are access and credentials. When you hire a new employee, usually you spend time onboarding him, sometimes for weeks, giving him access, teaching him where is what and what needs to be done. In that sense, when agent starts on local computer where already files are, where already are applications and access, then the agent can start from where human already is. In terms of cloud agents, usually agent starts not from that position. And here are some examples of workflows that I have already with Desktop Commander locally. Workflows like importing and analyzing interviews, analyzing GitHub stargazers for our repo so I can learn a little bit more about them, find how I can connect and communicate with them. I have medium analysis data. We have telemetry data for MCP and BigQuery and so on and so on. And pretty popular use case is working with invoices. We do download invoices from many places. We need to organize them. We need to send them to accounting. This is pretty popular use case in terms of what is happening. An example of this situation where something comes from many sources as files, is organized and worked with, and then sent to other places. So I wanted to probably show you today. Let's actually, can you show me how GitHub stargazers? So what we usually see is that our users start with working with files, but then start to organize and automate more of what they do on their local computers. In this case, I use Desktop Commander capabilities to run stuff, connect to GitHub using my local credentials, collect the new stargazers that start our repositories, find out their X and LinkedIn profiles because they have some in their profiles. Taking a little bit of time. I think I will return to it a little bit later. Okay. So yeah, as I said, usually people start with their files, agent learns things, it helps them with the files, and then they organize things. So example that I wanted to show was GitHub stargazers. So today on the app side, we are still working towards product market fit. We are today multimodal and we are working towards something like a white labeled cowork for companies in terms of they sometimes need their internal models, local models. They sometimes need special connectors that are not public, that work on their network. So this is direction towards which we are working today with Desktop Commander. In that sense, If you yourself are interested in this kind of things, you can connect with me. Here is the QR code, and we can take questions. Let me take a quick look if it finished with stargazers. I think it's still continuing to work. So I think maybe we can take questions for now, and afterwards, let's see if stargazers are finished.
All right, that was fantastic. Guys, give it a big applause. By the way, they are open source. So anyone questions? Would you like to come up? And because the camera says, yeah, so everybody can see you. Yes.
Hello, Edward. Thank you for that presentation. Can you tell me, why did you decide to build open source? And what have you seen that has come out of building Desktop Commander as an open source project?
Mm-hmm. So basically, I would say that initially I was not planning Desktop Commander to become a funded startup. For me, this was a side project, exploration of how AI works and just trying to solve some of my problems. And as I shared throughout the presentation, for me, like the way I see it is the biggest problem of startups at the start is get to audience, so you can test on the audience what works and what does not. Open source actually helps all of this in a sense that if you remember, for example, Docker added us to their MCP repository themselves, partially because we were open source. It would not have happened otherwise. So partially it was not actually intentional. Oh, we actually got the, but something didn't work. Oh no, it didn't render. But anyways, let me return back, sorry. Uh-oh. Let me see, yep. Okay, sorry. So in terms of open source, I would say it helps a lot, especially if you're building closer to technical tools, in a sense that a lot of people prefer adopting open source tools instead of not. And I think it's a pretty good strategy to have both open source and not open source sides to your product. It actually helps. I also have one question from YouTube side. We have some comments streaming on YouTube. Question was, is this similar to OpenClaw? In terms of Desktop Commander, the way we think about it is that it's not exactly similar to OpenClaw. OpenClaw is slightly closer to some kind of remote freelancer that you like communicate through WhatsApp. You have no idea what it's doing. You have no idea how its workplace looks like. In terms of what we see about Desktop Commander is we kind of see it as an office for agents working on your machine, where you actually see the office. You can use the office yourself. You're kind of working with like side by side with an AI with your machine. In that sense, OpenClaw is different. That's the question from YouTube. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Anyone? Last chance.
Hey, Ed, once more. So my question will be like, can you just highlight as maybe latest integrations? Because I remember there was a very interesting use cases from very niche companies that I actually couldn't imagine, like there was some kind of weird devices or something.
Yeah, we have a lot of users that are doing slightly weird stuff. Not weird, unusual. If you're asking about the most fun use cases, one of the most fun use cases I remember is we have a ship engineer, not software engineer, and he's for 3 months out in the sea on the ship, and he has an apple garden and he makes cider out of those apples, but he's 3 months away, so he is actually with Desktop Commander help connecting and building and tuning a robot that helps him to take like care of his garden remotely while he's on the ship. So like if you're interested in very niche use cases, this is one I kind of like remember.
Thank you, it was beautiful. Yeah, cool.
Amazing, amazing. Is there any questions? Last chance. All right, that wraps up everything. Thank you. Really give it a big applause. So right now we're heading into a pause, a short break. Later, there will be Rhesis presenting how to test AI agents. So if you want to connect with any one of those fantastic, founders, please here. And yeah, let's have a break, guys. Stand up, move a little bit. Stand up.
Okay, to people watching us live, there is a break on the stream, on the event, because it's physical. But while we are here, I can maybe show you something, or we can communicate. So if you have any kind of questions or want to see something more while there is a break, let's try to do that. In the meantime, maybe I will spend the time trying to understand why the stargazers didn't open. Let me actually share the screen back. All right, it's actually opened here. Oh, actually, there was a syntax error. Let's try to fix it. Okay, now it actually worked. So this is actually stargazers from the Desktop Commander MCP, and we can check people who stargaze it. They have GitHub profiles, some of them have websites, some of them have LinkedIn and X links. So we can like go and follow someone from X. This is one of the use cases I have for how I kind of connect a couple of things. In this case, GitHub, browser, and AI. What else? What kind of other skills we have to demo? Something's lagging. Seems like application slightly froze. It seems I have a bug to fix. Let me restart it. One more example I can show you that is interesting is Medium Stat Scraper. The way I use that one is that basically scrape, so I can show you analytics on Medium, and there are a couple of problems with it. So if I go to stats as a content creator Medium, I can only see things month by month, I think. Yeah, so I can only see them by month by month. I can only see presentations, views, reads, and earnings. And when I go to an article, there is way much more information there, but I cannot see it over time. For example, here is information of where the traffic is coming from. 61% comes from internal, 40% coming from external. And what I did was that in Desktop Commander, we have ability to connect to browser and to execute stuff against the browser. And this is what one can do to basically control, almost reverse engineering the API to a website. So now I can actually pull the data from analytics endpoints of the Medium and help me analyze them with AI help in terms of, okay, what types of topics perform, what do not perform. You can see that it scraped 53 Medium posts for my user using my session in the browser. And it can help me analyze stuff around like, okay, what I should write, what I should not write, how internal versus external topics perform, in a sense that there are topics that perform quite well with Google and topics that perform quite well with Medium readers. And then this way I can connect, get the data, again, give the agent a context, and then it can use that context to help me make decisions. So my recent 9 posts got 14,000 views, 6,000 reads, thousands of claps, responses, and earned actually $800. So this is what kind of things the Desktop Commander can pull out of Medium for me, and then I can, get it to read my posts, help me to draft new ones, learn from what works and doesn't, help me to write things. And it can create this kind of dashboard. So you can see that, okay, here are the 9 posts, here is more information about them, and I can make more interesting questions in terms of actually, let's see, what kind of question do I want to ask? Compare which ones perform well in Google and internally. What is same and different? So basically I can consult AI about this kind of things. So it's actually adding a little bit more information. Oh, it even actually, what's interesting, it pulled the, who did it pull? Wait, it opened Stargazers again. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, okay. For whatever the reason, it opened for me against Stargazers. That's not what I need. So actually, I don't need it to work with Stargazers anymore. Let's see what it does when I ask like what performs well at Google and internally on Medium. You can, by the way, see the desktop commander is debugging the browser to do this kind of things. So now it's creating the report. I actually have a separate skill that I will ask it to use next. Actually, I don't need that. I can check what it's doing this way. And it's done. So what does it see? So this article had 34,000 internal and 5,000 external readers, while, for example, this one had 6,000 external and 2,000 internal. So Google pattern favors title with clear search intent. Medium pattern favors thesis narrative posts that resonate with followers, notifications, homepage tags, and digest surfaces. And it has a report analysis. So yeah, you can do this kind of things with Desktop Commander as well. It seems they still have a the pause on the live event. Let's see, what else can we show or do? Interview analysis, BigQuery stats. Not sure if I want to do analytics, but it can do similar analytics reports against our telemetry for MCP. I think we will be starting again soon on the event. Or not. Okay, so next speaker will be Nikolai. He's preparing.
AI Nation alumni, and he is really an amazing guy. And he is today gonna asking about AI agents. He's gonna talk about that. Please, Nikolai.
Cool. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much for staying this late. I know it's already 8 o'clock. So let's get started. I want to start with a quick question. What do you think is currently the most important tool to build AI apps? Claude, yeah.
Electricity.
Electricity, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Database.
Good database engine. I like that one.
Humans.
Which one?
Humans.
Humans.
An important tool for the brain. Reliability.
Yeah, so you will be surprised by what we are actually seeing. It's Excel. Because at the end of the day, folks are building, but cross-functional teams need to meet somewhere. And this is usually the space where they meet before they get stuff into production. So everyone is having different expectations as to what the application should do, shouldn't be doing, how it should behave in adversarial scenarios. And you put together test cases and you put together your observations and things that need to be improved. And this oftentimes happens in Excel. This is actually a sheet that we saw very similarly being used in production, with more than 250 test cases being iterated with every release. So on a more abstract level, what does this mean? What is happening right now is we have many roles with many tools. Everyone is using what they're most familiar with. And the testing happens in between. Yeah, it happens in Slack. It happens in emails, in attachments. It's being sent back and forth. And that results in poor quality. Not a properly shared definition of quality, but mostly a manual testing process with poor quality. And we can see this. So I want to put some numbers behind this. So here on the left, you see a chart of the AI incidents and hazards that have been recorded by the OECD AI incident monitor. And it does not only record Gen AI, but also AI-related issues and hazards. But this has been going through the roof since the launch of GPT technology. And essentially what's happening is companies are being exposed to all sorts of risks: reputational damage, operational risks, security issues, and compliance topics. And it's getting only more and more and more complicated. We just recently had a news article released here in Germany that a medical company was held reliable for what their chatbot said on the website. Yeah, and it actually went to court, and the court said, yes, you are reliable for what your chatbot said. What we are doing with Rhesis is basically we are giving teams one workspace where they can do the testing and the evaluation, bring everyone together, different roles, but connected to the tools that they are using anyways. How does this look like in practice? So we're building an open source tool, obviously, so this is why I'm here. But we're doing this with an SDK and an MCP version that holds all of the logic, and then a front end on top that allows non-tech folks to use the platform and the solution as well. So for the first time, folks can actually, if you are non-tech, if you are the product manager, you can run the full testing cycle all by yourself. You're not relying on an engineer to run any sort of like CSV-based pipelines, where at the end of the day, you need to manage things in a spreadsheet again. We've done projects with different types of applications, all the way from conversational AI, which is the most common type of application these days, RAG systems, which are getting a little bit of out of date, and also natural language SQL, for example, which is a very special case, but most importantly, AI agents. And what I want to talk today about is this complicated looking circle. Yeah, how do you test applications that you want to bring to production? And it all starts with actually a project, right? That is your testing target, the project that you want to get into production, that you want to improve and really work on. And then what you do next is you set expectations, and you have to think of how do you want to measure those expectations? How do you make them measurable? Yeah. How do we do the first part? So essentially, you can connect your application to Rhesis either using an exposed REST API endpoint, or we also provide you with an SDK connector so that the integration is a little bit easier for you. once the connection is established, we can send test cases to your application and we can record the responses plus the traces. And that gives a lot of insights into how is your application behaving. Yeah. Plus, we also bring everyone to the table. So we have functionality on the platform, which I will demo in a minute, that allows different roles to express what they care about. And that's important because if you don't have the buy-in from the very beginning, it's unlikely you will get it just pre-release when you're about to hit the red button. So everyone expressing what they would like to see and what the application should and shouldn't do, all the way from product management, marketing, compliance, legal, your chief information security officer, and so forth. That's super important. Plus, we're having 2 types of metrics on the platform that allow you to then measure those expectations. Most popularly, you have the LLM as a judge metric, but we also have code metrics. So where you can actually do whatever you want also in a deterministic basis and run evaluations on the output of your application. So that brings me to the first part. So when you're getting to the Rhesis application, this is actually what it looks like. You get a dashboard. This is a demo environment with very limited content. We have 2 applications in here, a travel assistant and a research assistant. I'm today going to mostly talk about the travel assistant, but this is how you start. And we have seen organizations that have 50+ applications, that all need to be managed and maintained. So have them in one place. That also helps with governance. And then you basically build the REST interface, and you can have multiple, so you can actually test your application with multiple endpoints. And once connected, what you can do is you go into the playground and you say, and that's the moment anyone in your organization can interact with that application, whether it has a UI interface or not. Sometimes it's hard to even figure out where's the interface for a given endpoint. Yeah, it's all going to be on one platform in the same interface. And anyone on the team, even legal and compliance, can use this kind of stuff. So now we see our application is actually called Rosalind. It's our friendly travel agent. It can help with travel questions, help us find destinations, etc. Now, I don't know if this thing is working. You don't know if it's working. So how do you figure out, right? What you do next is basically set all of those expected behaviors and define them for your application. So something like maintains conversation context. Yeah, it can actually maintain the context across multi-turns. Yeah, if you have that travel assistant and it forgets the flight that I was talking about in the second turn, that's not really good. Yeah, and if it makes proposals for the wrong dates later in the conversation, that's also not good. So it's like basic expectations, but you can make this as detailed as you want. And then you can see here that I mapped one of my metrics to this expectation. And what does the metric look like? Well, in this case, it's actually an LLM as a judge metric that we are running. It has an evaluation prompt. It has evaluation steps. It has a reasoning instruction, and this is classic LLM as a judge. And you can formulate this in whatever way you want. You can use metrics that we have on the platform. So we're integrating our own metrics, but we're also integrating with other popular open source frameworks like DeepEval, Ragas, and we've worked on the integration of Garak, for example. And that all helps to make it a little bit easier to figure out what do good metrics look like, but also create your own metrics. Good. So that's the first part. Now, what you will need next is test cases, right? So you have set up your expectations, you know how you measure them, you map them to different metrics. Now you need test cases, and you probably need a bunch of them, and you need to execute them and eventually collaborate. Now, how many test cases is enough? That's one of the most popular questions we get. Do I need 100, 200, 1,000, 10,000? Like, when is it actually sufficient? And at this point, there is no definite answer to this, but we like to answer that question in a way where we say it's a coverage map and not a number. Yeah, you need to make sure that all of your functional aspects of the app are covered, that linguistic-wise, it does what it's supposed to, and it behaves and feels like an application that is coming from your company. Every company has a different marketing language. That also then applies for tone and style. You want to make sure it's secure, so you need to have some adversarial test cases, jailbreaks, prompt injections. You will look at OWASP-related stuff, right? You might be interested in cost and efficiency. So how verbose is the whole thing? How many tokens does it generate? And at the end of the day, compliance. There will be compliance internal or externally that you will need to follow. And making sure that those things are covered. That is really the goal for anyone bringing this stuff into production. And then you want to run simulations, right? At scale. You want to understand for different turns in a given conversation, how well does it perform? You need to evaluate every single turn. And that's what we are doing on our end, as you will see in a minute. So what is complicated about this? It looks simple at first, like you're targeting an application and you're basically interacting back and forth. But then you have questions like, when does it stop? When should you actually stop with a simulation? When is the goal reached? How to come up with the next turn that makes sense in a given context. Yeah, and all of these things are complicated, and this is why we built Penelope. So we have our own agent within the platform that can run simulations against your application. It does consume a goal, instructions, restrictions, and a scenario to get started. So each of the multi-turn test cases on our platform looks like this. It has these 4 components that are being fed to Penelope, and then Penelope intelligently executes them against the target application. And that means every simulation is differently, and there's a certain degree of flexibility in how she's executing the simulation. But this is exactly what you want, right? You don't want to have those static kind of single-turn test cases where you do golden data sets, and then you send one prompt, you record the response, and you believe this is evaluations. You need to go beyond that. You need to have actual conversations going further down in turns. So what is a goal in this kind of setting? It is what the conversation should accomplish. The instructions are basically what Penelope, our agent, is meant to do. The restrictions is what she shouldn't do. And the scenario is like, in what scenario is she acting? And this is where you can bring in all of those personas and scenarios that you're expecting for your application to run into. And here, this is the same example as we had before. You can see that Penelope was evaluating this, but in fact, the factual correctness is not right. There's something wrong about the number provided, yeah? And we just recently added file support. So what you can now do is also send files along the conversation. So you might have someone who says, hey, I have a question around my ticket, and your agent actually needs to ask for that ticket first. And then that can be sent as a PDF or an image, and that support is now also included. Plus, once the simulation was run, you want to understand what happened under the hood, right? Just because the number is wrong and it's not $1,000, like that doesn't help. You don't know what happened under the hood. So the next step is always looking at the traces. And you can either do that in another great observability solution, and there's many out there, but that will be out of context from the test case. So we brought that to the platform, so you actually see the traces right connected to your test case. And we believe that helps a lot in improving the application. And then there's reviews. Any given conversation is being judged differently by humans. Just because we are running those automated evaluations doesn't mean everything is right. Like just because automated evals are green doesn't mean the application is ready to go. You will need a human to look at it, particularly for newly introduced functionalities where you're just learning whether your test sets are actually working as you expect them to. And you will have different folks looking at different conversations, providing their reviews. So we brought in this collaboration feature where you can annotate turns and whole conversations and basically say, well, this turn doesn't look right to me as a marketing team member, or this doesn't look right to me as a compliance team member. And everyone can independently look at the conversations and provide insights. Good. That brings us to the next part. Good. So we didn't look at a test case yet. So let's do that. So here we have one where we see exactly that structure, Go instruction scenario, turn configuration, doesn't have any restrictions. And the test case says, ensure Rosalind accurately tracks and references original booking details while processing a return flight date change. Now that's the goal of the simulation that's being executed. And a few instructions and a scenario. And you can see that the behaviors that we defined previously are mapped to the test cases. So this is where you're building the chain between expectations, how you're measuring the expectations, and actually the test cases. That's the mapping that is needed. So that at the end of the day, you know which expectations was measured, was tested how. And you can see that it failed in the last test run. So let's look at that particular test run, the mystical jellyfish. We have pretty horrible test run here. We have 8 tests, and each one has this detail pane here on the right. And you get at the top a few of the insights into the test run overall, but you will likely be interested in the conversation. So for any of these test cases, you're getting the full conversation that was simulated. And you can see that it actually says, okay, the first one passed, the second one passed, and then it started to fail. And from here, what you can do is you can go into the metrics and try to understand, okay, what actually was going on here? Did it achieve the goal? No, the goal was not achieved. It forgot the flight that was mentioned. Yeah, and then you can go on and try to understand better, why did this happen, and is this a regular problem, etc. Plus, what you can do from here is write your reviews. So you can say, well, this is failed, but I as a human think this is passed, or I as a human also agree that this is in fact failed. You don't have to do that for all of them, right? But you might want to do it for a selective few, depending on the setup. You can also understand, is this a test case that failed for the first time? Is this a regression? Or is this something that has been flickering, etc.? Really giving you the context of where is this test case coming from? How often has it failed? And how long do we have this in the test suite, etc., etc. Really giving you more background information. And then you might come to the conclusion that, okay, we need to work on this. Let's put a task on this, yeah, so that your coworkers can actually do something about this failing test case and then inform you when it's fixed. And then you can just rerun it from here and look at the next test run, see if it's fixed, and have all of that information within context. Good. Oh, we didn't look at the traces. Yeah. So for the test case that we just looked at, we do have the traces here. So you can just filter by the ID, and then you get all of the traces from that particular test case. So it's all in there. And I want to show you one example here. So this is one of the traces where you can see the conversation, plus then you get to see the tree view, and you through this and actually see all of the parameters that happened for any function that was called, or the handoff, for example, in a multi-agent scenario, what happened in the handoff between the agents. Cool. As I said, we're doing all of this open source, and we would love your feedback. We'd love to hear what you think if you want to try this out. We're also happy about feedback if something's unclear, etc., in the documentation. And we believe that by doing this kind of collaborative testing approach, we're bringing both worlds together, both the engineers, which can really work with the SDK, the CI side of things, and on the other side, the domain experts, and give them a feeling for being heard and being included in the testing process. Cool, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Why open source?
Yeah, so
This is not a question, right?
yeah, I love that question. So For us, there's two reasons. The first one is you cannot test a black box with another black box. If you don't trust the agent that you have built with a given agent framework, you don't want to use another black box that you don't understand and then need a third box to test the first two boxes. That's not working, right? Also, we believe that to make this big, we need a community. We cannot claim to be the experts in testing AI. We need a community around this. It is the same movement that we see across the Gen AI stack, basically. And we believe that open source provides trust, transparency, the feeling of belonging, and this is exactly how we want to build this.
Thank you, Nikolai, for presentation and demo. You know, I am now learning how to build agents, and now what I see, there are a lot of platforms, infrastructure from Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, etc. A lot of open source projects, and so for me, it's brings me to the question. Okay, you know, for every SDK from any platform, I need to spend the time. You know, there is some learning curve for this platform.
Yeah.
So what I am thinking about, you know, I don't have so much time to learn all these platforms, to be honest. So I want to learn something that it will be more or less, and I will be sure that it will be stable in 1 year, you know.
Right.
So now, for example, I'm thinking about learning Google because, like, for example, they are developing their marketplace.
Yeah.
And the distribution, for me, it's important. For example, how I can distribute my agents to the companies that already working with the Google Cloud, for example, or Microsoft Cloud, doesn't matter, you know. They can just plug in, it's like in a minute, you know. So the question is, what is the benefit to use your platform to then integrate to, let's say, I am going to sell my agents, for example, some special vertical for medium business, you know?
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I know that they will say, okay, how it's secure, how we can trust them, it's etc. You know, when I have like on Microsoft Azure, you know, they understand, okay, that we are more or less already using Microsoft Azure, so we can just install it in one click and more or less everything, you know, it will not take so much time and effort for them to integrate this agent. So the question, like, what is the benefit of your platform?
Yeah, so the question of adoption is something that we also care a lot about. So to make it easy to get your application connected, we also look into integrations with marketplaces and the large infrastructure providers. This is something we also want to improve. This also is relevant when you're selling to enterprise when it comes to billing. They usually like to get one invoice from AWS that includes all of the third-party partners. So yes, we are looking into this. The big benefit here is that it is cross-functional, that it covers the full testing cycle. Oftentimes what we see is, yes, the example of Excel was extreme, but what we oftentimes see is that teams have multiple places where they control quality. They might use prompt-through, for adversarial testing. They might use a little bit of deep eval for some of the metrics. And if you have your quality shared in 3 or 4 solutions, it's not going to work. Like, you never know what your quality is. And that's the approach that we're taking here. We're integrating with popular frameworks, bringing them to the platform. You can use NVIDIA Garak right from within Rhesis, which takes you days to understand. That's, you know, one of the concerns that you just raised. But in here, you can basically just import the latest test sets with one click, rather than even going to the GitHub, understanding how it works. You can execute them against the application that you already connected. So I think things become easier as you integrate them and make it a full platform and lifecycle and covering solution.
So what I see now, you have a good visual interface, and if you want to target, for example, product managers, marketers, whoever want to build, you know, for now, you have a lot of SDK open source projects that is more for tech savvy, I would say, specialists, you know. If you like it's a question like is it like all these people like product managers and marketers, I don't know, want to build their agents. Do they really want to build their agents? You know, because it's a question like maybe they want the other people build the agents for them. You know, and it's like they are going just to the engineers or like people who more or less understand it. You know, on this platform. But definitely this can be advantage for for you. So it's I would say if it's more simple, then it's better. But I see, you know, that Anthropic trying to do something like this. You know, they are just recently launched this agent, some builder. I don't remember how it's called, but I think, you know, they are definitely want to go to this like direction. You know, and it's also the question for you. Are you sure that they will not eat you? You know, like in 6 months or something like this. I mean, like the thing is, they are eating like everyone. You know, for trying to build, you know, something like in.
Absolutely. So I agree with many of the points that you just raised. The first one, everything that you saw is also available via the SDK. So for the purpose of the demo, I used the UI, but you can do all of that stuff straight with the SDK, and it's even more flexible that way. When it comes to will they eat many of us, the eval startups, we already see that happening. Databricks has been buying one of the solutions. OpenAI bought PromptFu. So it is happening. That consolidation is going to happen. The long-term question will be, will you want to evaluate on the same platform where you are building? Because then it's like, you know, it's hardly coupled. It's not independent. You don't have that. You will get into that feeling where you will test black box with another black box.
For me, it's important.
Yeah.
I would say I want to be more independent from Anthropic or Google. I mean, like for me, of course, it's important.
And then for the last aspect, I had this discussion last Thursday where I was here for another event, and the question was, how do you maintainability over time? So let's assume the agent was developed by the engineers and it was shipped by the engineers. Now the responsible product lead wants to update the model. Do they need to get the engineers back to do it, or are they empowered via experiments and parameter changes to do that update themselves and run the test cases themselves? So what we recently added was experiments where you can do parameter changes independently of the role in the team. And then you can see the impact by just running the test sets that you're usually using anyways.
Thank you. It's been a very insightful presentation. We're in a similar situation in my company. I'm more coming from the revenue and product operations side. So we're working collaboratively a lot with our AI teams. And now we're coming to the point where something has been shipped off and we don't know how to cross that bridge of, we want to enable you so you can then modify it or change it or test other parameters as you were mentioning. But I have the feeling that the friction here is like, how do you give that knowledge to the other side without kind of not keeping it within the AI team? So there's a bit of this, I would love to use something like this, and I would immediately pitch it to whoever is within my company, but then I feel like that will be the pushback where somehow we're keeping all of this within the AI teams. Is this something that is being, it's recurring with, from your experience so far? Is it, are companies more open to?
Yeah, so there's definitely a change in roles happening, and we see new titles appear, right? AI PMs, conversational designers, and AI conversational designers, and all of these things. And it's sometimes a little bit tricky to understand where do they belong. For us, this is particularly hard when doing cold outreaches, like which roles do we even target and who's responsible for this stuff right now? And if you look at an organization from the outside, it's hard to do. So I can also imagine that it's inside an organization, sometimes hard to understand where should this belong. Some are more organized than others, but I don't have a clear answer to your question, like should you give that responsibility to someone outside the AI core team? Looking at the organizations where I worked previously, I would always say, yes, do it. give the ownership to those that develop it, that ship it. They should also own parameter management and all of these things, like running the application. That is, the biggest responsibility. Pre-release or pre-production work is great, but the real fun starts when you have real users. So, and then actually turning that real production traffic into test cases again, right? That's important. And they need to have that ability and flexibility.
And have you had, or let's say, have you figured out what profile is a bit more the decision maker in this particular scenario? Was it who would you reach out to?
Yeah, so it's either engineering leads or product management leads. We do see two streams, and there's no clear picture as to where this is going to end up long term. Surprisingly, we don't see too many chief information security officers. Yeah, like my first take was, okay, this is where this belongs, but we don't see that too often. It often sits with the engineers that then look for a solution and bring in the product people, or vice versa, the product people look for a solution and bring in the engineers. Hey, I want to use this because then I'm independent.
Just one more I wanted to ask about, so for the testing purpose, I would imagine that, especially in Germany, compliance is becoming, or I don't know, I would imagine that it's one of the biggest ones that hopefully companies are testing now more, or want to test. But I would imagine it's super complex to develop that, as you explained, how to define the scenario, what to test against, and I would imagine it's more than just technical. So there's other parameters that you need to consider.
Yeah, fully agree. So it says the European solution for this, because we see that there is a need for more understanding of how does compliance work in Europe? How does data security, data protection work in Europe? We want to get there. I think we still have some work to do on the compliance side of things. So we first focus on reliability and robustness. Compliance is also coming. There's lots of things that you can do independently, but then it is customized. Like it will be a cold start, but we need to make this smoother for the future.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Perfect. That was Rhesis. All right, now for the last one, it's gonna be Vexa.ai.
We need to add the bot.
We need to add the bot. It's gonna be
I think I'll do that along the way. I'll use this opportunity to show the product from the top bottom. All right. Okay, I'm sharing a tab. I want to share the entire screen. Just a second, please. Yeah. Here we are. Can you see my screen? No?
No.
Oh, sorry. What about now?
Yes. No.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Dmitry. I'm founder and core maintainer of Vexa, which is about context for AI. Companies generate a lot of context now, and it's in emails, in documentation. But for many companies, online meetings like this one, like we are on right now on Google Meet, is the biggest source of context counted by tokens. And this is actually the only, probably the only source of data for AI that is ephemeral. So it's just vanish if it's uncaptured. So we need the way to capture this data. Companies and businesses want this data, to feed this data into the AI. And let's get started with this So we see the full user flow. This is the API, which is this is the API first product, but you can also use it as a with the UI. It's a fully open source Apache license product. Everything that's running now in the cloud is also Apache license, so you are free to host it or use it in the cloud. And we are waiting for the guys to join, to let the bot into the meeting. All right, here we are. So here the bot is in the meeting, and we'll hopefully we'll start seeing transcripts coming now soon. All right. So meetings is the biggest source of data that is, so you need to treat well, you need to capture this data so it becomes available for the AI. You need to capture, you need to store them so it's available. But there is nothing that much new about that. We have a lot of shiny products like Fireflies, Otter, Granola, beautiful UI products. But the thing is that agents actually hate UI. Agents hate clicking buttons. Agents love APIs. And developers love APIs too. Developers hate building UIs, so everything collapses into building a good API for that. So that's what we did. And we fully open source this. And I'll start answering the question what's about why is it open source just from the very beginning. And there's an interesting question to that. Vexa became, I started Vexa as a meeting note taker, as a normal SaaS product back in 2024. But I quickly noticed that trust is a scarce resource here, that companies of any size, especially the bigger the company, the less likely they'll actually use your product unless it's open source, just because they want to have data in place inside their company. They want to self-host everything. They just can't afford. They just cannot afford. Can you guys mute maybe because it slightly hallucinates on the microphone, but we can leave it as it is. Not a big deal. Yeah. So the bigger the company, the less likely that they will actually use your SaaS product or your proprietary software, because they want to own the software, they want to own the data, and they want the software to adjust to their workflows, not to adjust. The company doesn't want to adjust to the product. It wants the software that adjusts their workflows. And so we open sourced what we had a year ago, and about around May 2025, and we start gaining traction quickly. And we were in a few months from there. I've received a message on Discord from a developer from one of the big video production studio in the US, and asking for help to help implementing Vexa for a product that they've been building, which is a daily note-taker assistant. And now this project, Daily Note-Taker Assistant, with the Vexa as a backbone to that, is being developed by Sony, Disney, Industrial Lights and Magic inside Academy Software Foundation. So these companies are building something that will manage their entire meeting dailies, which is actually the biggest for many video production students, for this folks, it's most of what they do is stay in a meeting like this. Yeah, and so right now, basically what Vexa is a self-hosted stack, which allows you to send a bot to Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, or Zoom. It's a transcription service which is included, so you have everything inside the box. No third-party APIs called for that. And nowadays it's about 2,000 stars on GitHub. And the business model we have, Vexa is a commercial open source company, is that we offer support contracts to enterprises, and we have a few now building pilots with us helping them commercially. One of the European central banks and IT company of 3,000 people, and the Academy for Software Foundation Video Production Studios. So they understand one thing: they need meeting data, they want transcripts, and they understand they will be able to get value out of this. But the next question arises quickly is that, okay, now you have this real-time meeting transcripts. What's next? And these companies, as any other normal builders, they start experimenting with things like N10 workflows, something pretty basic, which actually obviously is not something that will be industry best practice in a few years from now. So we quickly realized one thing is that we need an agent runtime in the same stack. Why is that? Because meeting bots are basically just Kubernetes bot or a Docker container, if you know what I mean. So it's a basic orchestration runtime unit. And a perfect agent, what is a perfect agent? It's a Cloud Code CLI or Codex CLI tool and a bunch of files. And actually the best environment to run this thing is a container, not the virtual machine, not your local machine, not your MacBook, because you don't want your CLI to actually browse your machine, not necessarily want for security purposes, and as an enterprise, you definitely don't want that. But instead, you want it to be isolated in the container as a CLI, so you know it won't be able to escape. And you want it to be ephemeral, so this container just comes, does its job, and dies, exactly as a meeting bot. Yeah, so, and what is, say, OpenClaw? OpenClaw is just a CLI tool, a bunch of files, usually markdown files, as a Git repository, and a machine. And if you put this into a container, you'll have a scalable, enterprise-ready, secure solution. So that's what Vexa is today. And another thing that meeting intelligence is about, it's actually meeting intelligence is just a part of general kind of enterprise intelligence. So you want meetings, you want emails, documents, you want as many connections as possible. But how do you do with this? And the OpenClaw moment showed a very simple thing, is that agents are basically, if LLM is a next token predictor, then agent is just a basic, it's just a general text generation machine, right? General text processing machine. And so code is not different from Markdown in this case, or from any other type of text. So if we treat Markdowns, if we treat text same as code, we can create structures that looks like code, that are dry, do not repeat yourself artifacts, but built on Markdown. So this actually a perfect knowledge structure, knowledge graph. You can build knowledge graph from Markdowns that are interconnected, that do not repeat yourself, and you can integrate them with the Git the same way as you do with code. So that's what Vexa is doing right now. It's about enterprise knowledge management through meetings intelligence, through data access, which is the meetings and transcription API. Yeah, so yeah, we are on the infrastructure side. We, like in this market, we have companies like Recall.ai who are doing the bot, proprietary bots, sending bots to meetings and then streaming this audio to DeepGram. And on the open source part, we have another competitor, which is Attendee, and they are managing bots only. They are Elastic 2 licensed product. And we are doing all of that. We do the bots and we do transcription. And now we are reusing the same runtime to run agent with the knowledge workspaces inside as a fully open source Apache 2 license product, which is exactly the same code that you can run in the cloud, use in the cloud, or you can get and from Docker as a single container or as a Helm chart. Yeah, so that's what about Vexa, and please use Vexa inside your companies, contribute to Vexa, and no strings attached, fully open source.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Vexa. Give it an applause, guys. It was very nice about please. You better use Vexa. I'm telling you right now. But any question?
Thank you, Dmitry, for the presentation. I was looking for a platform like yours. I think 4 or 5 months ago, before it, I tried so many note takers. So I tried Fasom, I tried Read.ai, I tried Fire Files that you mentioned. And I stopped on Fasom because it's doing so good summaries on the call, and I think it's best features that they have, because I didn't like another summaries, And that's why, I mean, they all more or less the same, recording meetings, you know, making transcript and so on. But what I liked in Fasom, so it's like at that time it was, they even didn't have API, you know. But they do so good in summaries. Then I started to look at the platform who has like at least API, you know. I'm not saying about open source. So now I know open source platform like you, and so I will try it like today to see how it works, you know. But for me, especially, it's super important that it's like generating good summary. So did you do some evaluation of the summaries, you know, of the meeting? Because like I think it's a one important thing, and also one important thing for me is that it can auto connect, you know, on the meetings. So I don't need to pass the link and invite him automatically. Do you have like this feature when it's it's automatically connect to the meeting?
Okay, thank you. Good question. Yeah, so what you're describing about Fathom is a good example of a perfect vertical product. So it's delivering the holistic user experience for you. Open source is more about infrastructure. It's about a toolkit. It's about what you can build from the tools that are available. And at this point, Vexa is about the API that gives you access to that. So access to the data with the workflows, which you can integrate into your workflows as you want. As of my specific use case, how I do use Vexa, Vexa sends a webhook on any meeting finished, and my clone code is reading this transcript. And since I have a big knowledge graph, similar to what I have explained, similar to what I described before, of markdown files, entities, like all the companies I spoke to, all the people of the project, all the strategies I had, this all the bunch of markdown files interconnected with each other. So as soon as it sees this meeting, I have a kind of summary is a wrong word about what it does, just because it's capable of evaluating the strategic value of this conversation, which is not about summary, which is much deeper integration into what makes difference to me at this point in time. And it's a generic capability of a good agent with a good model. So this is the strength of APIs and open source solutions, that you integrate them with things that already state of the art, instead of building a perfect and nice and shiny vertical solution, which is kind of rigid and isolated. So this is the strengths and weaknesses of open source. But you kind of have to build it yourself in a way. Otherwise, just ask your code, say, go and connect Vexa. Just 3 words, and they'll go and ask you to get an API key, and you'll be set up in a few minutes. And that's the way to go right now, and that's why I believe like this kind of workflows will actually win the battle between infrastructure and SaaS products. That's why people say SaaS is dead. I don't like this, but that's what it's about, as I understand it.
Sure, absolutely. Anyone else with a question? No one? All right. I think this wraps up everything. Really, I just let's give a big applause to all, startup founders. And yeah, thanks for joining. And you want to connect with them here again, just The website is down below, and here's the LinkedIn. Okay, so I would say, would you want to say something? Okay, perfect. Thanks for joining, and gonna see you next time. You can still hang around till 10 p.m. if you want to work a little bit or connect with people. Yeah. All right. Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
And with this, our stream is over. Thank you for joining. Leave some comments. Participants will be able to answer later if you leave comments down